Good morning. Welcome to Walking Boxing. It is Thursday, August the 7th, 2025. And after the weather yesterday, which was pretty ordinary, today is back to being absolutely beautiful. As I said yesterday, welcome to Victorian weather. This is what it does. But a lot more enjoyable today than yesterday. All right, on this day, let's go right back to 1966, when Mexico's Vicente Saldivar defended his WBC featherweight title by defeating the Japanese fighter Mitsunori Seki. That fight took place in Mexico. In 1982, Dwight Muhammad Qawi, the recently departed Dwight Qawi, formerly Dwight Braxton, knocked out fellow great Matthew Saad Muhammad in the 6th round to defend his WBC light heavyweight title. That fight took place in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. What a fight in town that is, or city. In 1994, Japan's Hiroshi Kawashima defended his world super flyweight title by defeating Carlos Salazar on points. That fight took place in Tokyo, Japan. In 1997, Roy Jones Jr. defended his world light heavyweight title with a first round knockout of Montel Griffin. That fight took place in Ledyard, Connecticut. Never heard of Ledyard, Connecticut. In 2010, American Devon Alexander defended his world 140-pound title. That's a super lightweight, with a win over Ukraine's Andreas Kotelnik on points in St. Louis, Missouri. And also on this day, left this one till last, Hector Macho Camacho in 1983 won the world 130-pound title. Was it to win it? Well, I think it was to win it, not defend it from memory. But the reason this is a little bit of significance, if you didn't see my videos over in New York, make sure you check them out, because my mate Eddie Montalvo took me on a tour to Spanish Harlem, where Hector Camacho grew up. He was a boyhood, well, not just a boyhood friend, a lifelong friend of Hector Camacho was Eddie. Roamed the streets as kids and got into lots of trouble, and was there right along the whole way for his career. And this win in particular was one of his first sort of signature wins, and really set him up for superstar, and probably was the fight that really got people talking about him as a legitimate superstar of, or an up-and-coming superstar of the sport. Later on, I'll probably say the Jose Luis Ramirez fight was probably another one, when he went up to lightweight to win the WBC lightweight title. Just a scintillating performance that, as I said, really sort of put him in the limelight of being an up-and-coming superstar, and what a character of the sport that he was, Hector Macho Camacho. Just one of those fighters that just had that charisma and aura and could back it up in the ring, and we need those characters in the sport, and he was it back then. But it was interesting because there was none of this. Well, it was great that social media wasn't part of it back then, because who knows what he would have been getting up to. But he had some issues outside the ring, but he was just one of those guys who could just hype up a fight but without all the unnecessary trash talk. Yes, there was trash talk like a lot of fighters back then, but it was done with a bit of class, a bit of humour, unlike today where it's a little bit manufactured. But the Hector Macho Camacho, one of my favourite fighters growing up, and it was great to again go visit his old sort of haunts in Spanish Harlem with Eddie Montalvo. So yeah, that was on this day in 1983. All right, what's happening in the world of boxing? I've seen another couple of ads yesterday for Nikita Tszyu's fight on August 20th, and you really get the impression they're going all out to have Nikita fill that void. Now maybe, well, fill that void from Tim. Maybe haven't really taken much notice in the past the promotions of his fights, but this time they seem to be really getting personal with Nikita. They send him out in the woods, chopping wood, excuse me, giving his philosophies on life and a few other bits and pieces. And as I said, I'm not sure whether I've seen that part before, but I think it's great. I think they've really stepped up the production main event, and really sort of give us an insight into the head of Nikita Tszyu, which is not easy, not an easy thing to do. But I really enjoyed it, and they've obviously tried to pump up the undercard as well, which is something they don't normally do. Normally it's just the main event, but they've really focused on Michael Zarafa, as they should. They really want to build that fight up, but also Jazzy Parr and Brock Jarvis as well. And I must admit, the fight on the undercard I'm probably looking out for the most is the Ahmed Reda and Bruno Tarimo fight. I want to see what... It's a bit frosty this morning. I want to see what Ahmed Reda's got. I personally think this might be a little bit too early for him, if I'm being honest. He's only had a handful of fights. And Bruno Tarimo is a very, very mature, experienced fighter. And he's got Benn in his corner. Risky fight. So I really take my hat off to Ahmed Reda for actually accepting, and his team for accepting that fight, because it's not going to be easy. And I said the other day that Bruno Tarimo has fought the likes of Paul Fleming and Joel Brunker and Kai McKenzie and who's else in there? He's beaten someone else in there as well. I can't remember, but he's a very, very solid fighter and a hungry fighter as well. And as I said, very, very experienced. So tough fight for Ahmed Reda. But yeah, good overall card. I'm sure the ads or the commercials will keep coming, but good so far. Really, as I said, enjoy what they've done with the build-up so far on a very short time period. Probably was about a 3-week turnaround, isn't it? So hope they keep that up. All right, big news on the international scene. Alexander Usyk. It looks like we will have a fractured heavyweight division yet again. Now, the WBO, as we all know, have given Team Usyk and Joseph Parker's team 30 days to come to an arrangement for a fight, or will go to purse bids. Team Usyk, quite rightly so, by the way, have said, yeah, we're not interested at the moment. We're going to take a break, do our thing, go on holidays and just take our time. So the odds are that the time is going to expire. So the WBO have said, well, if that is the case, then we will have no choice but to elevate Joseph Parker from interim champion to full champion. I thought he might have to fight the #1 challenger, which is Moses Otama, but it looks like he'll just be elevated to the full champion. I don't know why sanctioning bodies sometimes just kick an own goal and are just so desperate to strip a superstar of the sport and the legitimate champion. We've seen it with Usyk before. Just after he fought Tyson Fury, same thing happened. You must fight Daniel Dubois, and he's like, same thing as what's happening now. He's like, well, you know, just let me chill. Let me maybe have a week off before I sort of think about these things. But they stripped him straight away. We saw it with the IBF with Canelo Alvarez, who they were desperate, or almost, well, seemed desperate to strip him because he wouldn't fight William School, which is just ridiculous. I just don't know why these sanctioning bodies who profess to have the best interest of the sport at heart and want to do everything they can to, you know, uphold the integrity of the sport and have the right people fight for the belts, and then they strip the superstar of the division and the undisputed champion. I don't understand it. You would think that the WBO would maybe on this occasion, and Usyk's always fought the best fighters out there, always. You would think that the WBO, after that performance against Daniel Dubois, would say, all right, you know, take a couple of months to think about this, or to chill and rest and recuperate after such a great performance. And maybe instead of giving him 1 month, maybe it's 3 months. 3 months to say, all right, Alexander Usyk, what are you doing? And if you're not going to defend against Joseph Parker, then we're going to have no choice but to strip you if you don't fight him within, say, 6 months or 8 months or 9 months, whatever it might be. But to give him an ultimatum, pretty much it was a week after the fight, and they said, well, if you don't fight Joseph Parker, you've got 30 days to come to terms. Now, the facts are that Alexander Usyk and his team wouldn't have even probably been back from holiday in 30 days, let alone be in a position to negotiate. So I just think it's ridiculous. And again, as I said, I just don't understand these sanctioning bodies who say they do everything for the integrity of the sport and then do something like this. And it's not like I know Joseph Parker, by the way, is the legitimate #1 probably contender out of all the guys out there, regardless of the sanctioning bodies. But at the end of the day, at least give the guy time to breathe. and maybe say to Joseph Parker, all right, just chill. We've given him 3 months, and if he doesn't, then we'll look at it then. But to give him a month to decide, I just don't think it's the right thing to do. But on the flip side of that is that, as always, Turki Al-Sheikh has now stuck his nose in, and he has said they have no interest in Alexander Usyk versus Joseph Parker, and they want Usyk to fight Moses Otama. Now, Otama's got a tough fight in a couple of weeks' time, or 1 week's time, whatever it is, against Dillian Whyte. I think he'll get past that one, but it's not going to be easy. Dillian Whyte is very tough and experienced, and will give Moses Otama all he can handle, you would think, and not be sort of blown out of there in the first or second round. Why would you think Turki Al-Sheikh would be saying don't fight Parker, who again, Turki Al-Sheikh's probably the one all along has said he's been brought into the sport or come into the sport to maintain integrity and make the biggest fights and keep the fans happy. And then he's the one that says no interest in fighting the one fighter out there that has probably the most credentials for a shot. And he's saying, nah, we're going to give it to a 20-year-old unproven kid. So you see where I'm going? There's a little bit of hypocrisy all over the place here. I hope justice prevails and Joseph Parker gets a shot, but I'll be honest with you, I don't think the fight's happening. I think Joseph Parker will be elevated to number one. I think Moses Otama will be steered away from maybe fighting Joseph Parker for that belt in the next 6 to 12 months, and they will firmly probably feed Moses Otama a couple of more duds, and he will be the one that probably gets a shot at Alexander Usyk in another probably 12 months' time. Let's hope not, but that's boxing. Sometimes you just got to scratch your head and think, what are they doing, and why do we bother? Come here, man. Just spotted another dog over there. Let's go, man. Let's go. No, we're not crossing the road. On another note, you talk about doing the right things in the light heavyweight division. Looks like Dmitry Bivol and Artur Beterbiev for now is off. They've both gone in separate directions. There was talk, a lot of talk actually, that a Russian mob had come in. I think it was a Russian, might have been the amateur organisation who were looking to get into boxing over there, professional boxing, and it looked like it was going to be in December. Beterbiev and Bivol 3. Now Beterbiev is actually signed to fight Dion Nicholson on November 22nd on the David Benavidez Anthony Yarde card in Riyadh. Now, I suppose the big thing about that event is that now that Artur Beterbiev's team have said now they're going to target David Benavidez, so it does obviously make sense they fight on the same card and then set up a big fight in 2026. So lots of relevance there. So look, Beterbiev's team are accusing Bivol's team of sort of waiting him out. I don't sort of necessarily agree with that. I think it's pretty obvious that Dmitry Bivol is going to sit out and wait for the winner of Canelo and Crawford for May next year. That's, well, especially if it's Canelo, that'll be the fight, I would think. Now, whether or not he has another tune-up fight in between that, who knows? But he's probably in a position where he probably doesn't need to. He's had a lot of fights in his career. But it looks like for now, the two have split in opposite directions. And as I said, Beterbiev will go in the direction of Benavidez, and Bivol will go in the direction of Canelo. And look, I'll be honest. I mean, it'd be great to see a third fight between the two. It would. I mean, just to settle the score. But on the other hand, I mean, I think it's a little bit like Usyk and Fury. I think we've seen it twice. I think while they're both good fights, I'm not necessarily sure a third one's going to really, ignite the sport. Beterbiev and Bivol, they were both really good fights, but not great fights. I'm not that stressed about it if they sort of went their separate ways and had, one all, or maybe after if Beterbiev fights Benavidez and Bivol fights Canelo, maybe at the end of 2026 they could have a fight again. But again, I'm not that stressed about it. And I wouldn't actually mind seeing Beterbiev fight Benavidez. Lots of B's in there, isn't there? Beterbiev fight Benavidez. That would be a war. I probably prefer to see Bivol fight Benavidez, but as far as I think who's the top dogs of the division. But Beterbiev, let's not forget, he was a very, very good fighter, great champion. So. And he throws bombs. So that would be more entertaining. If I had to sort of pick a winner at this stage, I'd probably say Benavidez would win that fight. He does take some punches and can expose himself sometimes Benavides, but he's a big, strong sort of 175. Not that Benavides isn't, but at this early stage, I'd probably have to put my money on Benavides, but at least we'll get an opportunity to see it, which looks like it's going to happen. The other fight looks like now is going to happen is Chris Eubank and not Conor Benn. I was about to say Nigel Benn. That fight is going to take place on November 15th. Get off the road there, Neil. Thank you. There's not much shoulder here on the road at the moment. Off the road. Good boy. So November 15th, that fight will take place at Tottenham Stadium. Is it the Hotspurs, the soccer team over there, or football? So they've finally come around. It looked at one stage the Riyadh season. Is it Sealer? I think it's called, the organisation that funds it all. They actually stepped away at one stage. Looks like they've come back and renegotiated, and November 15th will be the date. Now, this is probably a little bit like Beterbiev and Bivol and Usyk Fury, I suppose. Do we really want to see another fight? I suppose we do. It probably makes sense. I mean, Chris Eubank's probably going to have to sit out. Well, this probably throws a spanner in the mix for him if Bivol and Canelo look like they're going to fight in May, because it was going to be Eubank. But this is probably the next biggest fight for him apart from the Canelo fight. So it's a big money fight. Doesn't look like he's getting Canelo, within the next sort of 9 to 12 months. So why not fight Conor Benn again, a fighter that he did fight and beat convincingly the first time. For Conor Benn, I'm not quite sure it makes sense for him apart from the revenge factor. He's a welterweight going up to maybe 154. I'm not quite sure, again, apart from the money and the revenge, that it's a smart move for him. If he loses to Chris Eubank again, I'm just not sure whether the shine goes off Conor Benn and he misses out on maybe some opportunities against the likes of maybe a Virgil Ortiz or a Sebastian Fundora or a Boots Ennis or Manny Pacquiao, who knows, one of these types of guys. I've just got a feeling that if he loses to him again, it might set him back a little bit. So, but anyway, he's probably obviously gone for the revenge route and the money route. So he's going to have to measure up in November. The only thing is I think all three cards had at 116, 112 when they fought last time. I'm not so sure that Conor Benn can turn it around. I just think Chris Eubank, being not just a bigger guy, but he just has the right style for Conor Benn, where he can just negate everything he does. And Conor Benn's a very limited fighter. I know he's strong and hard, and we probably get carried away that he's a big puncher, but his record, I think he's only got like a 50 or 60% knockout record. So I think we get a bit carried away with that. I think it's just more his style that sort of convinces us. He's a big, strong sort of puncher, but I just think that Eubank does it again, maybe even easier this time. And as I said, Benn is an average fighter. Maybe what they're looking at is cashing out. I don't know. I doubt it. I think he thinks he's a bit of a player, Conor Benn. But just interesting to me that they would go down this route, especially if he goes to 154 with the type of guys that are there for him to fight. That would probably be a lot more winnable than a fight with Eubank Jr., but maybe that's the other thing. Maybe he doesn't think he's got a chance against those elite 154s and thinks Eubank's an easier touch. I don't know, but either way, they'll all make some big money, and that's the main thing. Another thing I saw was Junto Nakatani has officially made the move to 122. Yes, he's now in the same pond, I suppose, as his countryman Naoya Inoue. Now, it looks like that fight might be in May next year. So Inoue is fighting the Russian MJ in September. Then it looks like he might be fighting Picasso in December, and then looking to fight Nakatani in May. You've got to love the fact that these guys are busy. Nakatani's busy, but especially Inoue. That's going to be a super fight. It really is. One thing I did see, or I see as strange about Nakatani though, is because most Japanese fighters are obviously they base themselves obviously in the home country and are very in-house with their teams, and they're very closed shop as far as being in Japan with the Japanese team. But Nakatani actually trains in LA. Is it Rudy Hernandez? I think it is. Pretty strange, isn't it? A Japanese fighter who trains in LA with Rudy Hernandez, but obviously doing really good things with him or for him, Hernandez. I'd be interested to see how they actually hooked up and how they become a team. Because as I said, the Japanese fighters and that are always pretty closed shop and they keep it in-house. But yeah, whoever's training him, they're doing a great job, because Nakatani is a killer, and what a fight that will be in May next year. Look, the easy money, or the easy decision, I suppose, is say, he wins that fight. But geez, if anyone's going to give in a way a fight, it's Nakatani. Maybe Benn Rodriguez if he decides to go to 122. So another big year ahead of us next year with some potential fights out there. But guys, look, that is going to do it for today. I've got to jump in the car and drive up and do some stuff for work today, so it's a little bit earlier today. But I hope you have a great Thursday. Enjoy the weather if it's like this where you are, and we'll catch you tomorrow.